Hey guys and girls, this is a corrected video on the carb rebuild for this Honda Recon. The original video at the very end, about the last 5 minutes or so, I made a mistake. Put the carburetor together back the way it was when I took it apart, and thanks to all the good viewers and all that stuff, a few of them told me how I did it wrong. So instead of just doing a correction video, I'm actually going to re-release the whole video with the corrected portion at the end, and I'll be delisting the original video. Thanks for all your comments, and let me show you how to do it right. Alright guys, today on Chaos Garage we're going to rebuild the carburetor in the wife's Recon 250. That thing right there. This is a TRX 250 TE4 2004. Let me pull the carburetor off and let's get started. Alright, I'm not going to show you guys how to take off the carburetor. It's pretty easy. One thing that'll help, if you take these plastics off, there's a bolt on each side and the rest is just these little plastic things. You put a screwdriver in, you pop it out, and you can pull this whole thing off. Whatever you can get out of the way, there's just more stuff you got to put back on, but there's two 10mm nuts right there on studs that got to come off. You got to unscrew that band clamp right there from the breather box, undo your throttle cable from the top, and take off your fuel line, and I think that is about it. So let me show you what this thing is doing. It runs fine, especially once it warms up, but it's just hard to start. So you crank it up and it dies. See, without any gas, it won't even crank up. Now I can't even get it cranked with one hand. Anyways, so hard starting. Sit there and give it gas, let it warm up for a little while, a little idle, it'll run fine after that, but I'm going to try to eliminate that. So like I said, let me pull it off, we'll go to the table, we'll talk some more. See you in a minute. Alright guys, so here's the carburetor off of that Recon 250 ES. I didn't mention, you got to disconnect the choke cable that connects in there. Use the right size screwdriver so you don't strip out these dang screws. And you also got your breather that goes on there too. So this is it off of the bike. It is a Keihin, just like off of the Kawasaki. If you didn't watch the Kawasaki rebuild video, don't worry, I'm gonna assume that you haven't, and we're gonna rebuild this thing to where this should be the only video you need. Now, with the Kawasaki, I bought a race driven off of eBay rebuild kit, and it's worked very well on the Kawasaki, so decided to go ahead and order another one. It was 15 bucks off eBay. So let's get into it. When I took it off the bike, that right there is your fuel drain plug, so you unscrew that and your fuel will drain out of this hose that's connected right there. That way your bowl's not full of fuel when you take it apart. So let's start by taking the screws out of the bowl. Now, when we first got this not too long ago, it had been sitting for a while. The jets were completely clogged up on this thing. So I basically took the bowl out, took the jets out, ran a piece of wire through it, and that's about it. Now, like I said, it runs fine once it's warm, but starting it's kind of a pain, and I'm hoping this will alleviate that, because I didn't clean it that well. I mean, I didn't even take the float off and all that stuff because I had a problem getting the pin out, which I'll show you, and I'll have to take a break while I find something to get it out with. So your bowl comes off just like that. You see it's not as nasty and green as it was before. I think in the original video I posted some pictures of how nasty it was, but that's why you don't let ethanol gas sit in these things. Best thing to do when you're going to store this thing for any length of time is one, use some fuel stabilizer. Let's see, I got some. You can use something like that to stick in it. This is actually Briggs & Stratton. Good stuff right there. It doesn't take a whole lot, but you put that, run a little bit through. But the best thing to do besides that, or in addition to that, is cut the fuel off at the petcock of the tank and either run it completely out of gas or reach in there and loosen up that screw and drain out all the gas that's sitting in the bowl. Alright, well, let's keep going. So there's a pin right here. This is your float. There's a pin right here that comes out and will allow you to get to that little piece right there, which is the controls how much. When the fuel bowl fills up, this raises and pushes that little that right there, pushes that up, and it seals and won't let any more gas in the carburetor. Keeps it from flooding out, but keeps plenty of fuel in the bowl for the jets to pick up what they need to. So let me find something to drive that out, and I will be back momentarily. Alright, here's a little tip on these that I found out. I didn't realize it last time. One of these posts is longer than the other one. You want to drive it in towards the shorter post, because there's a little knurled end right here that keeps this whole float from coming out. Now, you don't have to take it all the way out either. Just take it out just enough to where you can lift the float out. And then there's your little fuel thing that I was talking about that cuts off the fuel flow. Now, looking at this one, it looks like it's been making a good seal. It's not in bad shape. It's a little dirty. Kit comes with another one, so we're going to put another one in there. There's no O-rings, no nothing in there. It's just brass. So let's move on. Let's go ahead. Let me open up the little kit here so we can start replacing stuff. Now, I'm not going to say that I know where all this stuff goes, because I don't. But we'll see how far we get like we are. There's some small springs and some big springs and all that kind of good stuff. So let's start with the main jet. Main jet's 7mm. Now these are brass, carburetor's aluminum, so you don't tighten these down a whole lot. So this is your little tube that you got. You want to make sure, because the kit doesn't come with another one of these tubes, you want to make sure that all those little holes in there are not clogged up, as well as you can see straight through it. Now we're going to take out the jet right here. I don't know what that's called, but let's see. This jet is marked number 95. So in our kit here, we should have a jet marked 95. So you want to make sure that's all clean, get all the corrosion off. We'll reinstall our jet. And then we'll just snug it back down. This is just brass. You don't have to manhandle it. Just snug it up good. And I think that's it for that. Actually, no, I'm wrong. Who would have guessed? This goes in that hole. So if you look down in there, you see there's a little piece of brass right there. All you do is typically just push it and it should come out, in theory. But of course it's not going to play nice with me. Alright, the kit comes with a new one of those, so if you got to, use a screwdriver and just kind of tap it out. And there you go, it comes out just like that. So your new one has a skinnier end and a fatter end. The skinnier end goes in the carb first. And then when you screw your main jet back in, you should be able to get that guy back in place. Alright, so I had to lightly tap on it with the bluntest screwdriver I could fit down that hole. Now it should allow you to screw this back in. Like I said, this is brass and aluminum, so you don't have to super torque it, tighten it. Alright, let's take out the secondary jet. This one was completely clogged. I have a feeling that might be part of the problem as well now. Now our kit does come with another one. I did clean this out, and it's got a little bitty hole in it. And this, the hole in this, I know I can't get it in the camera, but the hole in that and the hole in that is a big difference. So this one is probably still dirty. That's probably why it doesn't idle worth a crap when it's cold. So let me double check, make sure there's not an O-ring or anything in there. Doesn't look like it. So we'll just screw this back in, the new one. Tighten it up. Snug. Alright, next, this is, I believe this is your fuel mixture at idle. What you want to do with these is you want to turn it in, not super tight, but you want to turn it in and see and count how many turns. So we got a half, 1, half, 2. So we got 2, almost 2.5. So let me make a note of that. Almost 2.5 on idle fuel screw. So then we can back that guy all the way out. Now this guy has, you see there's a little needle there. There's an O-ring on it. And there's a spring. And then there's a little washer down in there. So let's keep this in order the way it goes. There's a little washer down in there. There's your little washer. Tiny little guy. And I believe there is another O-ring down in there. There is an O-ring down in there too, you got to fish out. So you've got O-ring, little washer, your spring, your screw, which also has an O-ring on it. Now you see our kit comes with another one. So let's do like we've been doing. Screw, washer, and tiny O-ring, and regular O-ring. So that's how that's going to go back together. Now, the O-rings can be a pain to fish out. So give me a minute, let me see what I can do. Alright, so there's a little O-ring. I just fished it out with the little flathead screwdriver. So we'll put that guy over there. We're going to drop the new O-ring in. Make sure it seats good. Drop our little washer. Put in our spring. And before we put this in, we want to put this other O-ring on. So there we go. Looks just like the other one now. So let's drop this guy down in there. Now we're going to tighten him down all the way till he bottoms out. Okay. When he bottoms out, you're going to feel it. Don't push it. Don't push it anymore. So I said what? Almost 2.5 out. So I like to put my finger right where the slit in the screw is. It helps me keep track of where I am. So we're gonna go half, 1, half, 2, and then we're gonna go almost 2.5. That's right about where it was. That should be good. Now if you have problems with fuel and all that stuff, you know, that could be some adjustments that you need to make, but that's out of the scope of this video. Now, next thing we're going to do, because it's easy, is we're going to replace that gasket right there. So just take your little flathead or whatever you got and pop that other one out. Old O-ring, new O-ring. Be careful not to tear them or stretch them. Just kind of push it down in there gently and it'll stay. So there's that one. All right. So next we'll take this little diaphragm off of here. Take a peek inside it. Now this thing is spring loaded. It wants to fly off and get me. So just like on the Kawasaki, there's a little diaphragm. Now you can take that out and clean it if it's all nasty, but since this carburetor is in decent shape, I'm not going to bother taking that out. There's no extra spring or anything like that for it, so let's just put that guy right back together. If you do take it apart, make sure that spring sits in that seat like it's supposed to. Reattach our hose so we don't forget. Alright, now there's some other parts and stuff that goes in this. Let's go next. We're going to take this screw on the side out. Now this is where you adjust your idle speed. So just like with the idle fuel mixture, you want to screw that in. Now I did have to play with this because of this carb, so I will probably have to adjust this once I get it back on the Honda. So let's screw it down. So we got a half, 1, half, and 3/4. So we got 1 3/4, and I'm sure that's out of spec. 1 3/4 on the idle screw. But let's take it out. Now this one has another O-ring on it. And that one looks different than the O-rings that come in the kit. I think what it is it's like almost like a double O-ring, but it doesn't look split. That's interesting. So I think what I'm gonna do, since there's room on here, is double O-ring this little guy. So next we have a spring that comes out. We also have another spring. And let me see if there's anything else down in there. I don't think there is, but it's always good to check. No. So there's nothing else in there. So let's go ahead and put our replacement spring in there. Put our O-rings on. Careful not to tear them. Try not to stretch them. I mean, you got to stretch them a little bit to get them on, so let me get these on and I'll be right back. Alright, I decided I'm not a big fan about double O-ringing that. So, would it work? Probably. But I'm going to use the new spring, and since this O-ring is not torn, it wasn't leaking or anything like that, I'm going to use the original idle screw. Push it in until it bottoms out, and I'm going to back it off. 1 or half, 1 half, and then a quarter. Alright, give me just a minute, I need to take a break. We'll be right back. Alright, so we're against the clock down here. This GoPro battery's dead too, and apparently I don't have my charger. So, let's continue until it dies. This gasket right here on the bowl, take it off. Make sure this surface is nice and clean, and then install your new gasket. It can be a pain. It's fitted a certain way. Just work with it, and you'll get it. Like I said, try not to stretch it or anything like that. A little bit of petroleum jelly can help too, hold it in place. Now this one's fitting pretty good, but it is loose. So we're going to set that down right there. Now there are some other parts and stuff, and we'll get to those. But like I said, we're in a rush now. So you want to inspect your new fuel shutoff valve. Make sure that that little rubber stuff is all good to go and doesn't look all marred up. It just slides in it just slides in and kind of hangs there. See if I can show you. So all you do is you just guide that back down in there because you've already checked it, and then you can line up your float, tap that retaining pin back in. Light taps, you see, it's nothing big, and then there you go, your float works. Alright, so next thing to do with the carburetor itself is to reinstall your bowl. I'm doing it this way because I don't want that gasket to come out. You want to make sure that that gasket's seated in its right spot, not squished out or anything like that, because it will leak. Trying to hurry because the GoPro's about dead. Alright, I'll snug those up in a minute. What I want to do now, just out of my own curiosity, is unscrew this fuel thing and make sure that it is good. Fuel shut off. It's not full of corroded. It's not corroded. It looks alright. The kit doesn't come with one of these, so that's good. I'm just going to reinstall it. This you do leave tightened down all the way. Alright guys, that's it for the body of the carburetor as far as rebuilding it. We're going to go back over to the ATV. We're going to see about putting the main needle in. Alright guys, we'll be back. Alright, GoPro died. I apologize about that. We're about to wrap it up anyway. So this is what controls your throttle, basically. You see, when I push the throttle lever, it pulls on that cable. Now, in order to get this off, you see there's a little slit right there. So you push this and compress the spring all the way, and then that little knob at the end of the cable will come out, and you can slide it up, and this whole thing will pop off. And you see inside there's a little plastic piece. So let's take this back over to the bench. I will set the camera up the best I can, and let's go ahead and replace that needle. Alright, so looking down in there, if you take a little screwdriver and you push it one way, this little plastic seat will come out. Well, I say that, now I'm on camera, it won't work. There we go. So that little seat comes right out. Now, if you look at this, hopefully the camera will focus on it. So see, there's a spring that seats into that. That's that little spring out of the kit. And then your needle valve comes out. So you're left with an empty housing. Now there's 3 notches. So you want to put the that little C-clip on the middle notch. So let's take our new one, put it on the middle notch, and you might have to take a pair of needle nose or something and pop it on there. And there we go. And then you just reassemble it. That fits down in there just like that. It's got a little seat. We're going to take this spring out. We're going to use the new spring. Now if you look on here, let's see if I can get it to focus. Now if you look, one side of this has a little indentation that goes in a specific spot down in there. You see the little indentation? So you want to make sure that you install it back the right way. Now I'm going to get a pair of needle nose because that will help greatly. Be right back. Alright, so I got my needle nose. And we're going to make sure it goes in just like that. We're going to take our little screwdriver. I'm going to work it back down under that lip. Might take some finagling, because you got to make sure it goes back in that hole. But you should have a little spring. You should have a little spring to your needle, and it should pop right back out. And that plastic piece should retain it. So there you go. We're going to reinstall this and put it all back together. I'll show you what this looks like put back together, and then I'll cut, put the carb back on, and we'll wrap it up. Alright guys, be back. Alright, so there it is all put back together. Now there is a little plastic retainer at the bottom of that spring. It's got a flat spot in it. Make sure that flat spot goes towards the slit where the cable goes. So that's it all put back together. Now also with that slit down the side, if you look down here, there's actually a slit for it. So once you put this back on, you go to connect your throttle cable, you want to turn it till it falls down in there. Now the reason you do that is because on the other side, if it'll focus, I only have one hand. You see right there where those marks are? That's where that screw on the side adjusts your idle. So it basically cracks this open. The further you screw it in, the further it pulls this out. So that's how you adjust your idle speed. Alright, let me get this thing put back together, and we will see how she does. Be back in a few. Now it's time for the corrected part. What I did on the original video is put this throttle cable through the side of the spring which you guys told me was wrong, so we're gonna correct that. So you can, it's probably hard to see on the video, but it comes out of the spring right there and then goes through the side and connects in there. Well, you guys told me that that was incorrect, so we're going to fix that. So give me a minute to get this cable out, and we'll be back. Alright, so you've got this little black washer. This little black washer goes down in there. Compress your spring all the way. Put your washer on top of it. And then feed it through the slide. And just push it over. There you go. The cable does not come out of the spring, and that should fix her right up. Then just reinstall in the correct orientation. Screw it back down. Be careful not to cross thread this aluminum. Like I'm trying to do. There we go. All right. Let's see how she does. Cranks up, idles good, sounds good to me. I'd say that's a wrap. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful. If you have any more comments, let me know. That is the correct way to assemble the cable into the slide. And don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you know somebody else that this would help, share it with them. And I guess all that's left is we'll see you next time on Chaos Garage.